Welcome to another edition of Your Impact Attack. That's right, it's Your Impact Attack. It's time for new beginnings for TNA with TNA Genesis, and we're going to be giving you the same old reliable coverage that you've always gotten. Who are we? We are the VBC, and that it consists of the V, the vet, Jamie Williams. Hello, everyone. It consists of the B with a hot tag to the tag team partner through the internet, Brandon. What's going on, Brandon?
Oh man, it is going awesome. Like, dude, I thought TNA had a good weekend. I thought they did.
All right, a winning weekend for TNA. All right, let's go. And let's go, Brandon. Whoop whoop. And let's go chat the C and the VBC. They are with us as always, and they are popping live. Who do we have with us so far? Soon to be joined by many more, I assume.
Let's see. I think our buddy Chris Willen parked his car here a little bit here a couple hours ago. We got Liz with us. We got Lab Rat. We got Dark Side. I'm sure more will be filtering there in later. Whoop whoop. How y'all doing tonight? Much love. Good to see you. Whoop whoop.
Yeah, like when we start the show, it's like we get the four horsemen lineup, but the lineup keeps changing, like sometimes it's like a Sid Vicious, sometimes it's like a Paul Roma, but they're always a great powerful faction sitting right at the top, like no matter what lineup we have. So thank you very much for being live with us here tonight as we record this on a Monday and smack dab middle of the night of Monday Night Raw on Netflix. Everybody pausing their Netflix and getting some real wrestling content here at the Impact Attack before they go back to Raw a little bit later. Has anything happened on Raw that's been noteworthy so far before we got started here? Thinking. Oh, yeah, dig it. I'm going to say no. But,
Other than some, matches being made for Saturday night's main event, not really.
All right. Well, that's super exciting. Yeah. So, we're settling into the Netflix era. And TNA's been busy. And we're just going to kick off like what we're talking about with the biggest piece of news, but yet in some ways not really anything at all. Simultaneously, it's something and nothing at the same time, and it ties right in to our man Chris Winland, who parked his car, and he's probably sleeping in it, and we got to knock on the window and tell him he's got to move on. But his question...
Yeah, who knows if those cops give him a parking ticket.
That's right. The question that he's asking is, what are your thoughts on the TNA WWE quote partnership? How might it actually help and or hinder either company and the stars involved? Any suggestion you would have for said deal? And it's funny because I feel like we've gotten this question from Chris Winland before, just that it wasn't an official press release about this because WWE and TNA has been on a handshake deal for however long now. I've lost track of when they started doing this, but sometime last year, right? And nothing has really changed, and nothing was really said in the press release. It was just a bunch of glorified jargon and mumbo jumbo saying nothing. So to answer the question directly, I don't have any thoughts on the partnership that I didn't have before. Other than I guess my only thought is, we're still doing this. But that was kind of to be expected. I didn't know we weren't still doing this. So I until you tell me what this partnership means, like in an official capacity, which they're not going to do, and why would they? Because they probably don't know. But it's like, what would you be signing this deal for, Brandon? Like, if you're actually two companies that are signing something, what are you signing for? What are the parameters? And how is that supposed to be any different than what you would just, can so and so show up here? Oh yeah, sure. Like just off the books. Like what's the difference now? You just crunch some more numbers. Accounting has more work to do. What's the difference?
When you put it like that, I mean, I was originally looking at the original of the benefits. All right, we have a lot of people in NXT. We can't get them a lot of airtime. TNA is a little bit short on talent. They need, spots to fill, especially the Knockouts division, and especially with the NXT, where they have a lot of women who aren't getting a lot of airtime. That's where it's a lot of that discrepancy is. So that at least for that purpose, it works well. Ooh.
Right, but let me just throw this in right there. Triple H already said that months ago. So it's like this thing doesn't change what he said, right?
Right. It seemed more like a formality, just like something we kind of knew was going on. Then, like with the handshake deal, it kind of felt more like a test run. Right. And like once it's like, okay, we're getting nothing but positive feedback. All right, let's actually put it to paper.
Right. Let's see if the mega powers explode before we make anything official. Yeah. And still, what does that mean? Like I don't know, but it's like ceremonial. Like to me, it's just like handing somebody a big novelty check or whatever, or like just cutting a ribbon. It's something to signify, okay, look, we did it. But you could have done this. You could have done this the first time you did anything, right? Because you don't have to show anybody. There's nothing you have to prove. There's no paperwork you have to file. You just, hey, we entered into a partnership. We signed an agreement. Okay, you don't have to actually sign anything. You could just say that, right? Like there's nothing any different. So that's my thought is it's only smoke and mirrors. Whoa, it's only smoke and mirrors to me. That's just what I think. So it's kind of a much ado about nothing. Now to comment on the Society Reviews says TNA is the new OVW. That's what it means. Well, I mean, when was it not? If they ever wanted it, and when was with the WWID, the entire independent wrestling world is their OVW. They don't need that, and they don't need to have anything official in place. They're in a position, WWE's in a position now where, maybe even more than ever before, they're in a position to call all the shots. The only difference is, they're being a lot more cool about it corporately, as far as like talent exchanges and promotion for other, promotions and things like that, rather than ignore the fact that other wrestling exists on planet Earth. They're very much inclusive of it and letting people know about it and giving them publicity, which only helps everybody. It was never going to hurt WWE, so it was always weird the way that Vince treated it. So again, really, it changes nothing. They've always been in this position, so that's what I have to say about that. Would you agree with that, or do you have another take?
I think I'd agree with that.
All right. Yeah, and I think Lab Rat nailed it basically. They're going to provide enough catering. Basically, I think the agreement was that if Sami Callihan and Fat Eddie are going to remain under contract with any wrestling company, TNA or otherwise, the budget just does not cover, and they need outside help. So they asked WWE, please, can we get some provisions? Can we get some airdrops of some food? Can you make a special, a Stamford, Connecticut care package for Alicia Edwards, and try to sneak that in under the radar. We don't want Eddie finding out about that and him eating it too. Things like that, I think, are the more pressing concerns, But but yeah. But yeah, no, so, I just personally, so far, I just kind of think WWE is providing health care for the wrestling industry right now, despite, or not despite, but like simultaneously doing very good business for themselves. I think they're trying to do the rising tide raises all ships thing. That's how I look at it.
That I kind of had the same mentality of with that. Like you make something in wrestling hot, even if it's like, at that level. And I mean, again, it helps the entire business as a whole.
Right. Now we're going to specifically talk about the fruits of these partnerships, regarding TNA Genesis or lack thereof, or lack of bearing fruit. But we'll save that for later, because a lot of the things that we have to talk about surrounds this TNA pay-per-view Genesis. So we'll cover all that in due time. Now, Labrat wants to know about PCO, the Digital Championship, which was one of my news items coming up. So let's just get right into that. Number one, I will preface this by saying I didn't see this. I only read about it just now, like 20 minutes ago when I woke up to do the show. So, apparently at GCW versus the World, PCO was there. Now he's already, as of January, he's no longer under contract with TNA, apparently, is what we're being told. So whatever you believe with the wrestling business and what's a work and what's not, take anything with a grain of salt. I don't know. I'm not looking too far into it, but on the surface, PCO brought the TNA Digital Media Championship to GCW, and he won a battle royal, and then he smashed the Digital Media Championship with a sledgehammer, and apparently made some, what I would assume were some un-PCO character like comments. Like, instead of just going "ah," he was saying stuff. I don't know if anybody saw it. Maybe you guys can sort of give us the Cliff's Notes version of what he said, or exactly what he said. I don't know how much he said, but there's an item here from Tommy Dreamer saying, like, he was told what happened when he got off the panel, which there was a panel at Genesis. We'll talk about that. And then he said, okay, I guess he went PCO crazy, move forward and pivot, not an angle, just something that happened. So he speculates that this was just PCO going into business for himself, self-promotion, whatever. But he also thinks it doesn't have the same effect as it did back when they did, like Medusa dropping the belt in the trash type of thing. So that's all Tommy Dreamer's opinion. Also, it should be noted that it's also in the news that PCO has said that he's turned down like 3 offers from AEW, including an offer to main event Double or Nothing 2019. So I don't know. I have not been following the PCO situation carefully. So I really, everything I just said is just what I'm reading to you off of the thing I saw, which is all I saw. So I don't know. Do you have any other information or knowledge of this subject, Brandon?
What you're saying is the first I'm hearing of any of this, but like, as the wrestling business goes, who knows what's real? Who knows what's fake?
Yeah. So apparently Society says he was responsible for the highest gate and merch sales in TNA before they cut the feed. Yeah, okay. The only way I see this being a work is if TNA silently retired the Digital Media Championship and let PCO make an angle out of it. That could be true. But you know, I think they have silently retired the Digital Media Championship because that belt has been pretty much dead in the water since it existed. It's a joke. The whole thing's a joke. Um, but you know, this very well could be that, and or it could be the reason that they don't care enough to be openly angry about what PCO did, right? I mean, Tommy Dreamer doesn't have any emotions, so it's hard to tell. And I didn't hear him physically say what he said, uh, so I don't think he was mad. But I can just imagine him saying the way he said it, like, his usual Eeyore approach to everything. So I don't know. So there is that. But my thoughts on it. Well, I guess I gave my thoughts in another way. It's like, I don't care what he did with the Digital Media Championship as far as that goes, because I think that thing's a joke. But I've also said that PCO's a joke anymore, and it's just like a health watch thing. Like, until he finally does something that severs his spine for good, and then he has to actually quit. Um, that's basically the state of PCO in 2025 going forward. And book him at your own liability risks.
Yeah, make sure you have some forms for him to sign when he gets there.
So that's, sorry I don't have more. But at least we don't claim to be professional wrestling journalists. Now, the other piece of news I had, just a little something, it's not really major, is, I guess, because, and according to Real Wrestling journalists at Fightful Select, thank you, random article, for giving us the premium news from Fightful Select. I always appreciate not having to be a Select member to learn these things, these great things. But apparently,
why are you not? It's the best $5 in the business, pal.
Man, I just only have so many $5 to go around, and they all comfortably sit in my bank account, which is probably bigger than anybody at Fightful Select. The company is looking to shake up its production schedule in 2025. So what that means is that in February, they have time between their normal set of tapings, for February 20th to air a live episode of TNA Impact. Now, we all know how TNA does with live episodes, so this is very interesting and exciting, I guess. Yeah. So we're getting a live episode in exactly 1 month's time from today as we record this. Woohoo.
Woohoo.
There's a big, this article here has a big picture of a smiling Nick Nemeth. So we'll see if he's that live episode. But he should be. I mean, he signed a new deal, with TNA, an extension. Actually, he signed an extension to the deal that he claimed at first that he didn't have or didn't sign with them, because he was working on a handshake deal with TNA. So I don't know, what does that mean? Does that mean he shook their hand again, or did he write the terms of the deal on his hand and then shake the hands like that? I don't know. Or was it or did he pass it like a note? Like you pass the notes in class with a little handshake, not sure how that worked, but we'll see if good old Dolph is on that live episode February 20th. That could be a watch along, depending on your schedule. So we'll see. February 20th. I assume it's a Thursday. I assume it is.
Indeed it is. Knows? Hey, if my schedule's been going like it has been, I think we can pull it off.
All right. Well, with that being said, I think we should pull off a review of the go home episode of TNA Impact, because we got a lot of stuff to talk about here. And we might as well get right to it, unless there's any objections or in case we forgot anything.
I think we're good outside of. No, I think we're good.
All right. Well, one more thing coming in right under the wire. Fightful now claiming the PCO incident was a shoot and TNA is pissed about it. My question, why was someone who was not under contract holding your belt? Oh, well.
Ask WWF with Bret Hart and Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Also, handshake deals.
Yeah.
We're big on handshake deals in TNA. You know, it's Canadian company. They're very polite in Canada. You know, they don't want to make any trouble or anything. So it's like, hey, maybe you could, if you find the time there to bring back our TNA Digital Media Championship there, maybe, at your convenience, I'm going to just go ahead and drop that off there anytime. And you smashed it with a hammer, eh? Oh no. Yeah. Something like that. I think that's basically how it went down. All right, TNA.
As a kind of like an FU to PCO, I'd get the belt back, rechristen it as the TNA Hardcore title, and have Mick Foley as Mankind give it to the winner through the WWE partnership.
Yeah, exactly. All right. well, let's see what happens on this episode of Impact, because I think we're going to feature PCO on this. Ketchup packet to start with. We definitely have to do that, because God knows nobody's watching this shit except for us week to week. Ooh, there it is. That's the one. We are starting out with a match. It's Frankie Kazarian is going to be on commentary for this match. And the match is Leon Slater versus Trent Seven. So another guy I think we have to talk about recently, his contract status and stuff. So these guys had a match. Now I'll be completely honest. So I did this thing where, like, I guess I was, doing stuff around the house, and I put this match on, and like I walked out of the room and I forgot that I had put the match on. So when I came back from like fixing something to eat or whatever and came back to look at the match, I forgot that I didn't pause it, and the match was kind of like going toward the finish, and I did not rewind it. I wasn't going to rewind it, so I don't know about the match itself, but what I did see was that crazy Swan 450 move that Leon Slater does, or whatever you want to call it, or a Swan shooting star, whatever crazy move he does. And
or the 450 Swanton.
Yeah, 450. Yes, whichever. How? Yeah, we got to come up with a real. Does he have a real name for it? And I just miss it. I don't remember the announcer saying. They just keep saying, "You got to see this move." But yeah, that's all anybody's going to want to see in terms of this, because nothing against Leon Slater. It's more just like you don't want to look at Trent Seven's shitty body for like however long this match is. So it's best to just see the end of it, just like I did. But here's the part that was weird to me, because if you remember, Trent Seven, like, he did the thing where he turned on Mike Bailey. Well, Mike Bailey's out of the company, so we can't get anything off of that. And then in this, after he loses, he does the thing where like he like pays respect to Leon Slater for beating him and like gives him the "we're not worthy" Wayne's World bow on the way out. So whatever with that.
That seems like they understand Trent Seven's on his way out, and they're trying to get something out of him before he leaves.
Yeah, they didn't want to get. All right, I'm gonna just deep breath. I'm not gonna go into another rant on that. It's too early. It's too early for promo time. Um, but Frankie Kazarian, on the other hand, now he's a heel, and he's gonna try to attack Leon Slater, but Leon Slater's gonna catch him, and then he's gonna be like, just kidding. And then that's that. We're done with that part. So if you saw the match, what'd you think of it? And then what'd you think of this? What'd you think? What was your reaction when you saw Trent Seven's, you know, I'm going to turn on my friend and partner and be vicious, but this kid, I'll give him the Wayne's World bow and then the Frankie attempt, like all that stuff. What'd you think?
I mean, I already said about the thing with Trent and Slater afterwards, and of course Frankie's and trying to do the chicken shit heel thing, pal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're both chicken shits. Okay, well, next we get another one of those Joe Hendry packages. Going into the big Genesis match, we get some more stuff. Anything to comment on this? We need more. We got a big long one last week. That's what she said, but yeah, I don't know.
I know I like these. I think we should see more of these. Kind of like make a segment, like a once a week segment, but like remember Behind the Music?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that with instead of like an entire show, you do like a 2-3 minute segment for each wrestler, and you just do something like in that vein. A little bit of background, a little bit of just get to know them a little bit.
Yeah, I think that would work. I think that would be good. It's good to see more. So they only do it and stuff like this when they're like, hey, you're supposed to care for this upcoming weekend. But like maybe you could care all the time.
Like, remember when TNA used to do those rough cut segments?
I mean, I remember Rough Cut, the name vaguely. I don't remember how they played out, but something like this.
Yeah, it was almost kind of like they're like about 2-3 minutes. It was shot like almost like a sports documentary.
Yeah, I always like that. I mean, I like anything that can balance the kayfabe in there. I want the kayfabe in there, but like not the ridiculous kind that makes you roll your eyes like, oh, come on, nobody believes this shit. But like just something that doesn't, expose the business, but is still giving you like a realistic look at it.
Right. I think they did one on Matt Morgan where he kind of talked a little bit about his background and told everybody who he was and where he came from, just to kind of give people an idea of, just get to know him a little bit.
Right. Now, the way you don't do it is the way they did it with Crazy Steve, where he like tells you the sad story of his life or whatever, and then turns around and just continues to do the ridiculous gimmick, and then all of his future stuff is still the ridiculous gimmick.
Right, like you give him that sympathetic backstory, then he turns heel at the end of it.
Yeah.
We're not really giving that sympathetic backstory, but he tells that real story that's like, oh shit, dude. And then he just goes batshit crazy heel.
Yeah, well, we covered that. So if you want to go back in the archives and listen to what we thought about Crazy Steve, then by all means, Google the dates that happened and then match them up with the Impact. But we're not here to talk about that now, because Crazy Steve has been in Mexico for however long, probably on a handshake deal. Concierge is here to introduce Ash and Heather by Elegance for what was... Now, I'm going to, again, be honest. This time I was in the room but I really just could not be bothered to pay attention to the actual words of the segment. But what I saw was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my entire life. Um, should I guess basically what happens is the premise of the Labrat says crazy Steve can't see his way back to TNA. Yeah. Um, the premise is the Elegance ladies unveil what I guess would be like a representation of their what do they call that thing you do when you're pathetic? A vision board. They're manifesting their wishes into reality, and they have these life-size cardboard cutouts of themselves with the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions, cardboard on them, uh, and they're doing this weird like awards acceptance speech about how they're so happy to be the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions. Um, then Spitfire comes out and they not exactly save the day. Actually, they make this 10 times worse than it already was. They basically they take the real Elegance, shit can them, and then they proceed to do wrestling moves to the cardboard cutouts. And for two women that are obviously in the gym with a bodybuilder training program, they struggle to rip the cardboard cutouts apart in the ring. This could possibly be the worst. It would easily make a top 10 list of the worst things I've ever seen in TNA. It could make the top 5. It's definitely the top 1 in terms of since I've been doing this review show, and that includes all the episodes of Wrestle House and the fake Canadian wrestling promotion thing. I literally don't have the words for this because I wasn't paying attention to what they were saying, but just what I'm seeing was absolutely embarrassing. And I almost don't even want to dignify it by bringing it up, but I have to because it happened. Brandon, how bad was this? Because I assume you did a watch along during this. What was anybody saying, including yourself, when this shit was actually being presented as television time?
I gotta be honest with you. I think I might have been spending more time interacting with the chat than actually watching the show at that moment in time.
Well, bless you for that. Because even not paying attention to this was the worst thing I've seen. This is so bad. Like, they literally hit their double team finisher on a piece of cardboard. Could what? Huh?
Yeah, how hard would it have been to have them just run out with baseball bats and just destroy everything like that? You don't got to look stupid.
How hard would it have been to just
Never
not
do it
this?
at all.
Yes. And if I would, like, if someone had a cardboard cutout of me, yes, that's a quote, ellipsis marks. If someone had a cardboard cutout of me, and I'm a babyface and they're a heel, and someone has a cardboard cutout of themselves as the tag team champion or whatever champion I am or something like that, I'm not even going to go out. I'm going to be like, can you cut to a shot of me backstage just sitting there not interested while I'm lacing up my boots? Like, that's my creative input on the scene right there. Because I wouldn't even be like, why would I care that you went out there and you made yourself look bad. I don't even need to make you look bad. So you spent the time to make a cardboard cutout of yourself with my championship. Good for you. You're doing more than I ever could. I'm not going to go out there and put it over, though. So, yeah, this is why, in 2025, I'm just, my diplomacy levels have plummeted. I've been trying to be nice, and I'm just telling people, like, straight up, when I say, when I promote this show on other shows, I'm like, if you want to hear how trash TNA is, come and watch Brandon and myself on the Impact Attack. That's like how I promote the show. This is not maybe overall as bad as like 10 years ago, but some of this kind of stuff is worse than some of the stuff they've ever done. And I am stunned, as my quote, my quotable ellipsis mark. Oh, hey, remember PCO and Sammy Callahan? They're with Gia and no music underneath. You want to talk about not paying attention? Boy, this was a week of not paying attention, because as soon as I see these two fat fucks on my screen, it immediately turns to just like, oh, what else can I do? Oh, I think I have a piece of lint here. I need to take care of that piece of lint that's on my clothes. Throw that in the garbage. Not pay attention to this promo. Did you happen to have anything to say about it?
Other than, Sammy and PCO, pal.
The catering budget in WWE.
Well,
yeah.
It's going to be a little bit more lenient with PCO gone now.
Right. I know, but what if he? All right, well, let's go to Coach versus Bert and Eric. Now, this was a tag team match made to I don't know, try to get interest in the whatever they call the tag team division. The only thing that matters about this match, because whatever about this match, right? Again, as soon as you see Bert and Eric, you're just like, well, I am. Excuse me, I don't want to speak for everyone. I'm just like, I'm much more interested in AJ Francis. Who would have thought you would want to see AJ Francis? Out of all these people, and you've been a fan of Casey Navarro lately, but the noteworthy thing about this match was that they have a fan incident, the worked version of what happened with Fat Eddie at the pay-per-view last time, and so they do this work where KC gets into an argument with a fan at ringside. And then the fan shoves Casey and Casey takes a bump. This is only a little bit better than that cardboard thing, but damn it, no. And then AJ grabs the fan, and grabs him and he pulls him like halfway over the railing and is like yelling at him. And then security comes to like separate everybody. And then that, so let's pause it there and then talk about, so a real thing happened at your, what was it? Final Resolution? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay. Real thing happened where Fat Eddie was jawing with a fan and the fan slapped him after Eddie knocked a drink out of his hand. That drink probably cost more than his ticket. And oh my goodness, Lab Rat coming in with a $10 super chat. We have to drop everything. AJ Francis, the best thing in TNA behind Moose, he wanted to say. And you could have said that for free, but I appreciate you saying that for $10. Thank you so much, Lab Rat. Awesome. That's look, when you sign up to get government tested on, they do got to pay you. So I'm glad that he's divesting some of those government funds to us. Thank you so much. We couldn't do this show without your guys' support. And so thank you. That's also just a reminder that I didn't want to say, but this channel's now monetized. So, in the words of Morgan Freeman from the 90s classic Hard Rain, look, we just want the money. So feel free to pony up anything you got or not. We still love you the same. You can't buy our love. But anyway, so back to not love. So the real thing happens. We see him knock a drink out of this guy's hand that, like I said, it cost more than his ticket probably for Final Resolution. Then he slaps Eddie in the face. Then Eddie slaps him, and the guy obviously not going to sell it because it's real. So you expose a business. Then Matt Hardy has to keep going back to selling for a guy that couldn't knock a fan out. And then that's how that played out. So you want to remind everybody of how ineffective your wrestlers are by having a fake work fan shove one of your wrestlers down, who's, by the way, in this match trying to compete for a number one contendership for a championship in the company. So you want him to get shoved on his ass by some nobody and sell that. And then you have AJ do what no wrestler would do. Like, no wrestler's going to grab a guy by his shirt and hold him and talk to him. They're going to start throwing punches if it's come to that. So basically, long story short, you're reminding everybody by doing a worked version of something that already went horribly for you. Brandon, why?
Maybe to rib on yourself. I don't know. Like, if you're going to
be making written agreements with these people.
Like, if you're going to make that like an angle or something, you're going to be having Moose getting in Eddie's face going like, how you going to let a fan bitch you out like that?
Could you imagine if the WWE on SmackDown had like a fan shove Johnny Gargano down? Despite the fact that they would probably do it?
Dude, if Vince was there if that happened, he'd be gone. He'd be fired as soon as he got through the curtain.
Bro, if Triple H, they did that, he'd be fired before he went through the curtain. Like, you just don't do that. You don't put the fans over like that. You put the fans over by thanking them. Like I thanked Labrat and everybody else here. That's like how you put the fans over. Your gratitude for their support. You don't be like, hey, why don't you make it look like you're above our talent that you're paying to see? Hey, we'll make the people who are paying, we'll put those guys above. You know what I mean? Like, you don't do it. It was a regrettable incident. It was handled poorly when it really happened, and now you're reminding everybody, and you're doing you're making yourselves look even worse.
Yeah, that's one of those. If best case scenario, they should have just completely ignored it, or done something or handled it in the back somehow or something, but not like as far as on camera, leave it be.
Right. Well, guess what? You would think we could say, if we're trying to look for the silver lining, we could say, well, at least they took this moment and it played right into the finish. Obviously, we could say that, right? Like, oh, well, shit. At least they did something with it. We could say that, except unfortunately, we fucking can't, because this match went on for like 3 more minutes or something after this. This whole thing where after this, Eric gets he hits, he's in the ring with Casey Navarro, who just got shoved down by a fan. Then he hits like a Death Valley driver, right? Which is not his finish, but it's still a pretty devastating move. So he hits the Death Valley driver. And then Casey kicks out. He kicks out of the Death Valley driver, which would have been like, if him getting shoved by the fan went directly into a Death Valley driver or whatever, you'd be like, well, obviously he's so weak, he should kick out of anything. Like he should get beat by anything. Like, he kicks out. And then they continue to work and go into a spot up on the top rope. Like, he's like, well, I'll just go up. A Death Valley driver wasn't enough. I'll go up to the top rope and hit my top rope elbow. And then they do a spot where Casey crotches him on the top rope. And then they go into a thing where he's like, they're fighting for it. And then he shoves him back down. And Casey Navarro takes a bump off the top rope. And then Eric Young hits the top rope elbow and then beats him.
They make it way too complicated to fill time.
It's taped.
I know.
You don't have to fill a motherfucking thing. It's taped. You edit that shit. Put an extra couple of photos in Joe Hendry's little, life story. Don't fucking do 10 more spots after you get shoved on your ass by a fucking fan. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Poor Lab Rat has to give us $10. These guys are getting actual money for this. Like, they're signing contracts with WWE. They don't know shit. You don't know shit. Not one person in your fucking joke company knows shit about wrestling, dude. Come on. This is two back-to-back embarrassing things. Like, one from the promo, sort of entertainment aspect, and then from the in-ring aspect, the psychology aspect. You don't know shit about wrestling. You don't know shit about television. You don't know shit about entertainment. You don't know shit about, like, ring psychology or how to work a fucking match. And this is Eric Young we're talking about. It's not like, even AJ Francis should know better than this. He's a fucking football player wearing street clothes, basically. He's wearing his fucking warm-up gear like the fucking dad that plays pickup basketball at the local 24-hour fitness. And he's not doing dumb shit like this. Fucking Eric Young, you ought to be fucking ashamed of yourself. That's why I've been cutting promos on you since you and that other dumb bald-head Canadian did that spot where you almost killed each other in that fucking match. 'Cause you're fucking stupid. Oh my God. We got a whole pay-per-view to talk about still. Oh, but that's okay, Brandon, because you know what happens at the end of this? The System come out, and they stand at the top of the ramp, and they do the Three Musketeers thing where they put their fists in. Whoa! Look out, Bert and Eric! I apologize because not to anybody in TNA, not to the fans or anybody. I apologize to Brandon because I don't really leave him a lot on the plate. I'm very much like Fat Eddie, and he's Alicia Edwards here. Like, he doesn't have anything to eat once I'm done. But don't worry, I won't have as many promos to cut on every single thing here. So be sure to get your shit in too. Regardless if you want to or if it makes sense or not. Make sure to get your shit in on this show because we got a lot more to talk about. Don't be afraid to cut me off and step in with anything. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, pal.
Did you know that Masha was at NXT?
I did know about that, yes.
That was the single best thing that's ever happened to her. Sitting in a crowd at NXT with her belt, because this fucking place, she needs to get out. Get out, Masha. Get out. Get out now. Get out and get somewhere where they won't allow you to do the things that you're about to do later on in this show. Speaking of which, the Rosemary Confessional with music underneath. Now, this was the shits, but after what we've just seen, this might as well be Punk and Drew, as far as I'm concerned. Let's talk about the Rosemary Confessional. Explain it to the people what it was and what you thought of it.
So basically, it was a cinematic, vignette. It's supposed to be like a Catholic confessional where Rosemary and Masha are confessing things to each other, and it ends up leading with Rosemary promising violence, and they're basically going to try to kill each other.
That's pretty much it. Cinematic, good God. My criticism for Masha is, I think she's trying too hard. I think she's overacting. I think she should be cool in something like this. Just be cool. Just say everything understated and be cool. She's trying to like really emphasize the things she's saying, like, I'll drag you to hell. And which Rosemary just goes like, okay, whatever weird reaction that is, but that's how they ended it.
I think the chemistry between Masha and Rosemary should be Masha completely no selling the mind games while acknowledging she's no selling the mind games. And then Rosemary picks up on it. It's like, okay, I'm going to keep stepping it up. I'm going to step it up, step it up, step it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. It's just like a struggle that some people have with written material. I can tell people are handing stuff to Masha for her to, to say for these things. And she's not like an overly strong promo. But it's, even if you're decent at promos, like everything I just said when I cussed out Eric Young earlier, like if someone had written that down for me, it wouldn't have sounded good if I read it, because I'm not good with my scripted material. Sounds worse. Sometimes I even write in my notes a little joke to say, but it doesn't sound as good as if it was more natural. So some people just struggle with that, and other people really they excel at taking something on the paper and bring it to life, even if it's bad. So Masha's not one of those yet. So I would just say, if you have to read this bad material, just read it cool. Don't try to sound cool. Just be cool. And then go from there.
Say it as Masha would say it.
Yep. And or maybe, yeah, say it as Masha would say it. Now, speaking of whatever we're speaking of, Northern Armory is next. And they're in the ring doing a promo, and Santana comes out. He's in the crowd. They're doing a thing. And speaking of scripted material, like somebody thought it would be a good idea to, it's funny that he's trying to get over like a bald ass head as an insult, like as if every white wrestler in wrestling isn't like some bald guy with a beard. Like it's not the insult it would have been, especially if, like if Dolph Ziggler lost a hair match and then you chanted bald ass head at him, you'd be like, okay, yeah, I get that. Josh Alexander's never been anything but bald, so, and we were supposed to like him last year, as recently as last year, so what? I don't know. It just sounds silly, and I'm not buying it. Did they do anything on this to sell you on their upcoming I Quit match?
Not really, no.
I think basically Josh just said, if you make me say I quit, I'll shake your hand. Like that's the takeaway I got from this.
Yep, which ends up, as we saw, ends up getting paid off at the pay-per-view.
Spoiler alert.
Oops, sorry.
Well, here's one you couldn't see. You couldn't see which way this was going to go. Laredo Kid versus Jake something.
OMG, who's going over in this one, pal?
I mean, at first, I honestly wouldn't know. And for a second, it almost looked like they cared about Laredo Kid, so perhaps. But actually, no. Now, what I saw of this match was a lot of... I was kind of like, let's see, how do you physically, or like how do you verbally do this? Like, is that how you do it? Like, it's just, it was a lot of like sloppiness, and
Mm.
near death experiences. Like whatever that attempt at a Canadian destroyer was, that almost ended up rolling out of the ring. I don't think Jake is that well versed in lucha, sadly, and he didn't pick it up in one match either. Sorry to say. Um, and then the scariest thing was actually the thing that uh, I guess went the best it could have, but in concept, I was very scared because the finish was a top rope powerbomb, and he jumped off backwards with Laredo Kid and powerbombed him, and that was the finish. Apparently, the landing looked pretty good, but I mean, again, this is a guy that almost died once, and I don't really know that this random match in the middle of an Impact that really has no bearing on anything needed a top rope powerbomb for a finish.
Yeah. He's got Into the Void. Why not go with that? Get your actual finisher over. I know, crazy thought, right?
Well, maybe that's just the consolation that Laredo Kid needed to do another friendly job here in this company. Apparently, he's doing a good job down in AAA, helping with the booking and the agenting and things like that, according to Conan and what he said. So he's taking a behind the scenes role as well, and maybe, possibly, even probably, this him taking a top rope powerbomb was his idea, because I could see like he wanting to look stronger by taking a move that's more likely to end your life than, say, a simple Into the Void slam.
I mean, it's Jake Something's actual finisher. Like, that's what he goes over guys with. No, let's do something else. That doesn't make any sense.
They're tougher in Laredo, I guess. Society says, speaking of Badlands, did you see the girl for GCW who did a suicide dive in an intergender match and broke her leg in two places? Well, no, because it's GCW. I didn't see it, but that was Allie Ketch, right? Allie Ketch did that, which she was brought into TNA for one of those pick your poison deals when they were, I don't remember who was involved anymore, but
it was Jordan setting her against Masha.
Right. Well, there you go. I mean, I don't know. I didn't see the thing, so I don't know. I'm not sure I'm done with doing promos tonight, so I'm not going to spend one on that, especially because I didn't see it, and it could have just been, it could happen to anybody. Ace Austin package. It's talk a lot about the Chris Bay injury, and it's a nice thing. It's similar to the Joe Hendry thing. It's like they're doing profiles for these challengers for like the two main singles titles in the company. So, they're doing these things to get you interest. And I'm like, yeah, all right, good. And tugging on the heartstrings with the real life Chris Bay, talking about spending time with him and his recovery and how that's motivated him and all this stuff, weaving the reality into the kayfabe in a way that we can get behind on a wrestling program. However, you probably already know what I'm going to say. This is on the same show as the fucking Rosemary's Confessional. And I don't, in my personal opinion, disagree however much you want or agree. I don't have room on my show for both these things. So if we're doing reality, let's go with reality. If we're doing Demon Realm, we're in the wrong business, because we should be making original content for Shudder. or something.
Yeah, I do agree. Like this is one of those things where like if you have like a brand split, okay, you kind of have one show that's more like the sports show. You have one that's the entertainment show. Like, yeah, these are two things that can't really I do agree with you on that point. These are two things that can't coexist on the same show.
Well, on this show they can. Still, you know, at least it wasn't cardboard. Um so we get an entrance from Sammy and PCO, and then we get, the lights going out and the number 23. 23 is just a number. Hey. All this stuff, right? Still not sure what that's about.
And who knows where that's going after what happened with PCO.
Right. Also, again, spoiler alert, did anything happen at Genesis with the number 23? Yeah, I didn't think so. It's possible I dozed off at some point, so I just want to make sure. And then we get the Hardys entrance, and then we get the match. So as soon as this match is in the ring, I'm like, I ain't watching this. I'm just telling you right now. I owe it to you guys, paying viewers now. I'm just being honest with you. You deserve honesty. I ain't watching. It's like, I'm not watching this match. What I did see was a sloppy mess. But Sami Callihan aside, the match wasn't smooth either. At least, now see, that's one of those things where I wrote a joke down and, you guys be the judge if I pulled that off reading it. At least the one thing I can say nicely about the match was that at least Jeff, when he did his swanton, he had a nice soft cushion of lard to land on when he hit Sammy with it. So everybody was probably fine on that finish. Anything you have to add?
Now it kind of seemed looks like it's kind of like a get over match for the Hardys going on to the pay per view.
Okay. Jordan Grace comes out to the commentary desk, grabs one of the headsets, and is talking into the mic, and she's leaving a contract on the table with Tom and Matthew because I guess they're upper management that oversee contract signings and stuff like that. So she's like, I'm leaving this here for Tessa Blanchard. Okay. She said other things in a different way, but nobody cares. So then it's time for our main event here, which is a Joe Hendry and Dolph Ziggler face to face. We always love to promote when two guys are going to stand with each other. And then, of course, you can't have a Dolph Ziggler segment out now without my brother. My brother. Yeah.
My brother. My brother.
Wherever he goes or wherever I go, he's gonna go. Yeah. So, all right. So this guy, well, he's faker than a good guy doll, Ryan Ziegler.
Heidi ho.
But yeah. So basically, this whole thing, without getting into the nuts and bolts of it, basically the whole thing is to build intrigue of whether Dolph is orchestrating all of this stuff that's happening or whether he's just a coincidental bystander, stuff in terms of like, JBL's involvement or all this other stuff that's been happening since, the last time that these guys fought. So anyway, that's what they're trying to do. And, basically, when Joe Hendry's had enough of Ryan running his mouth and goes to give him a standing O. And Dolph Ziggler super kicks Joe Hendry out of it to save his brother. Then it's like, then the announcers are trying to be like, was this planned all along? Like that they really want, like, I don't know if that's really the story of the match, but whatever, that's what they're going with. They're trying to build that intrigue, and they're doing it in the over-the-top fake. Announcers have to carry this off because it's too I don't know. There's just nothing there for the audience that's just like looking at it in the ring. Like, yeah, okay, he kicked him because that's his brother, so whatever. But the announcers have to put all this other layer of intrigue on it. So that was that. Any opinion on that? Do you think they oversold the the mysterious intrigue of whether Dolph Ziggler is a mastermind?
I do think they kind of, it was a little bit mixed. I think they could have executed a little bit better.
As far as this show goes and this company goes, comparatively, it's like a 8 out of 10. But that's not the very last thing. The last thing that we got to get to is Tessa Blanchard comes to the desk and she signs. But as she's picking up the thing, Tom, with the, hey, you could have your God is my witness, he's broken in half. You can have all these Horowitz wins. You can have all these great calls in wrestling history, whatever. Excuse me, I'm going to take Tessa. That's the contract. That's my new number one announcer call of all time. Tessa, that's the contract.
Yeah, no shit. That's why she's signing it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So she's signing it, and then Jordan Grace jumps her, little payback action, jumps her from behind through the crowd. They start fighting or whatever, and then their fight makes their way to the ring, and then they start doing Irish whip reversals, and that's, kind of where they lose me. But Jordan hits a juggernaut driver, and that's how we go off. I know how much I hate somebody. I just can't stand him. I've been waiting to get my hands on him. I came through the crowd to jump him, and I'm going to start Irish whipping. That's what I always do. There you go. Go home. Go home to Genesis. Is Dolph Ziggler a mastermind? Oh, yeah. All right, let's go to Genesis then. It's time for Genesis. Time for TNA Genesis. No punching up this week. We're just going to have to do it as it, and it needed it as much as any episode ever has, but.
Yeah, we'll be starting a fresh batch of them for next week. Yeah,
a new beginning.
A new beginning, a new Genesis.
All right. A Sega Genesis.
Oh, definitely. Honestly, Irish whip, I could throw the dude in the bar and just then try to close in on him.
I mean, but if you do the schoolboy, though, they're not getting up.
Especially if you pull the pants up.
Mm-hmm. And you could hit their head on something. They might hit their head on a stool on the way down or the hard floor. It's good. Or if you use, whose finisher is the power schoolboy? I think it's Gigi Dolan. She used a power schoolboy, so that's extra impact. All right, so the Genesis has a pre-show. Did you happen to see this?
I did not. After reading about it, I wish I did, because it at least seemed pretty entertaining.
An attempt was made. The first attempt that they made was to try to be the WWE by having a panel on this pre-show. Now, when you see the WWE panel, it looks very expensive. They're on an elevated platform with a big, ornate desk that everybody is sitting behind with their papers and all this other stuff. And this was you brought out a table, a wrestling table, the kind of table you would put somebody through or that people are going to go through later in this show. And you put a TNA tablecloth on it. And then you have everybody hunched over holding hand mics. And this looks like a Comic-Con. This looks like a Des Moines Comic-Con panel with Gia Miller, Tommy Dreamer, and then from Busted Open you have Dave LaGreca and Mark Henry. Dave LaGreca fits right in as an embarrassing Mark. Like not only is he just that in life, but he's also like trying to play that up like on the show and like trying to get over. Like he's wearing like a Ash by Elegance shirt and like trying to say things to get people to boo or whatever. It's just, I don't know, but everything about this just looks like this is why you don't try to do something that's like something else if you don't have the budget for it, you know? And they're also doing, furthermore, they do things, they do, when did Gia start to sound like Dixie Carter Lab Rat? I don't know, since every time she's opened her mouth, she has a hard time hiding that accent.
Yeah, the Southern accent is actually natural for her. She's actually trying to hide it when she's on camera.
Right. So they show Joe Hendry, they show Dolph Ziggler, they show Jordan Grace, and they show Tessa Blanchard arriving at the building the same way the WWE always does, you know, on their NXTs and their Raws and everything. It's like, look who's showing up at the building, you know? And it don't look the same, you know? So like you're doing the WWE style, you got a panel and you're showing people arriving with their rolling case and whatever, and their sunglasses and whatever. So you're trying to look like the WWE, but if you recognize this from the WWE, you know that they look a lot more expensive than TNA. So you're showcasing how low budget you are. I guess for the arrival shots, there's not much you could do. So I don't mind them trying that. But for this panel, it ends up looking extra poor. And so anyway, yeah, so they're trying to do a WWE style thing. However, the first piece of original content on the pre-show is a Jordan Grace promo, but this is definitely TNA style because it's just her and some RGB lights shining on the wall in the background. So, you know, classic. Then Ariana Grace comes out to the panel and accepts responsibility and credit for the TNA WWE partnership and says, "You're welcome." And then she says she's going to have a lot of her best friends there tonight. And apparently, judging by that, that means she doesn't have very many friends. And the friends that she does have don't make sense. But regardless, the first one out is Ashante the Adonis, who says he is the main attraction despite being on the pre-show. And he actually somewhat more or less phrases it like that, which is good. And he says he's going to have an open challenge. And who answers the open challenge but Jake something? Now, Adonis here is in full Ashanti the Adonis mode. And if you don't know what that is, it's better than pretty much almost everything that's in TNA. So he automatically just comes off as like, well, I'd much rather watch this guy because he's being an entertaining heel. And I would love for somebody to kick his ass. But they use Jake something here, which, you know, I guess we're supposed to just forget everything that Jake something's been doing up to this point because they put him in the role of like the babyface who shuts up the outsider.
The loudmouth, arrogant outsider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll do that to the guy that's been, you know, hanging around being a bodybuilder and, you know, beating up other baby faces with Alexander Hammerstone till now. We'll just do that. Yeah. Did you know TNA's now on Snapchat?
Give me Snapchat, pal.
Yeah. You all remember Snapchat. It's that thing you used to use back before, you know, we had these other things that the government tries to shut down. So yeah, Black hole slam and excuse me, into the void, and Jake's a face now, I guess.
Surprise face turn, pal.
Yep, surprising. All right. Hey, Moose was on the pre-show. Um, and
Well, you gotta do something to get him to hook him to buy the main show.
that's right. So what they do is they have Moose come out with JDC, interrupt the panel, and then very quickly hand the mic over to JDC. And it looked like he almost didn't know that was going to happen, but he said that he's going to do commentary for the next match. So he goes to do commentary for the next match, and then the next match doesn't happen for several minutes because we still got to do a video package about the Rascals and the Hardys, and then we see the Rascals doing a promo. No lights, so that, but it looked like they were in the hallway of whatever the hotel was that they were staying at. So that was interesting. You could almost see the the room service trays left outside the door. But they did that. And then we get our pre-show main event, I guess, which is Mr. Bet on Yourself. How many pre-shows has this been in a row that he's been on? It's been a lot. But
A lot of pre-shows.
He bet on himself though. And Leon Slater. So this is the big match that we've been building to with these guys. The red hat sign guy that you've seen from many wrestling events. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
He always wears that blue mechanic shirt and a red baseball cap backwards. And he's always got these signs. Well, he had a sign that says, "Hey, Frankie Kazarian, where's your biggest idiot award?" Oh, he should be writing for this company. He's already on par. So anyway, yeah. So he goes so Leon Slater goes for the Swan 450 into Frankie's knees, and then Frankie cradles him for a 1-2-3. So there you go. And then finally, there's one more promo each from Joe and Dolph. Both of them are in the lights, TNA style, just like Jordan Grace's earlier. So we are now ready for the main card of Genesis. Cameron Wright sings the national anthem. You are right if you said, "Who?"
Who?
Yep. If you Google her, you will not be impressed. But that's, hey, I'm not throwing shade at Cameron Wright. I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere, you know. If you Google me, you're not going to be that impressed either. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, you know.
You got a ways to go, kid.
Yeah. Somebody that may have a significantly larger media following is back in TNA. Mackenzie Mitchell is the new ring announcer since Josh's wife is no longer under contract. So TNA's Mackenzie Mitchell, formerly NXT's Mackenzie Mitchell. It's great. It's great. That partnership, you know? What do you think? How does that feel like? What do you think about that? I didn't really, I mean, I kind of thought about it. I didn't think about talking about it, but like, what does that feel like when WWE's like, yeah, we're letting you go. And then you're like, oh, and then you's like, TNA's like, well, you know, how about, we need a new ring announcer. Why don't you come and work over here? And then WWE's like, we're working with TNA now.
Yeah, with those kind of some of those partners, like people that work with TNA that used to be in WWE, I could definitely feel like some awkwardness there, like Macklin, Young. Although I think Young, he'd be a little bit more open to working with them since Vince is gone, and it's Triple H, and he had a good relationship with him.
Sure. So we're kicking this off with Ace versus Moose for the X Division Championship. And, that's been sort of I feel like much like Mr. Bet on Yourself on the pre-show, like you can almost count on Moose to open a pay-per-view now. But here it's I'm not gonna lie to you. It wasn't my favorite. This match was a lot of like Moose looking like he's getting his ass kicked by Ace Austin, which is not necessarily the kind of match I would like. Um, but that's what they did. They did a very TNA X Division type of match, and Moose did a lot of selling.
In my opinion, I think that was more. I think Moose was trying to be a bro and make Ace look good before beating him.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. But there's still different ways to do that than what they ended up doing. Um, but yeah, the system gets involved. But JDC gets speared accidentally by Moose. And the Fat Boys get dived on when they come out to try to interfere. So, you know, that happens, and Ace is, still very on top of things. And then it takes about 3 spears to finally put him away. So a lot of respect showed towards Ace Austin here, like an outrageous amount of respect. And again, I get all the circumstances and everything, but it didn't end up. I don't know if it ended up coming off the way they wanted, but I don't know. What do you think? I mean, did you feel like it was? Did you feel like it should have it hurt anything, or it could have gone differently? I don't know. What do you think?
I think they could have gotten that business done in a lot less time and without having to have Ace kick out of a spear. Like he could have got that business done with him fighting off the system, but eventually, like the numbers game is too much, and then Moose hits the spear. We're done. We didn't even make it that convoluted.
No, or I mean, you basically had Ace go over the whole system, single handedly. So I don't know. They seem very ineffective. Uh, but Ace is finally put down, and then before the system vultures can, as they encircle the carcass, then here comes Bert and Eric to make the save, and they start brawling, and they end up, spilling into a tag team title match or like contenders match. Like if they win this, they get a shot at the Hardy Boys, I guess, right? So now this was the match that the Hardy Boys had to have with Sammy and PCO, like to keep that. Well, not this match, but the match that they would have had that to keep them out. Or wait, yeah, they had to. What? I don't know. I've lost There's too many contenders here. But despite the fact that the mighty Alicia Edwards slapped him in the face, Bert still goes on to hit a KIA on Myers for the win. So did you like the way they transitioned from the first match into this match? And did you have any thoughts on the match itself? And did the right people win?
I do like how they kind of set this up. It's kind of a hot way to start the show where you have one match leading into the next one. And I think the finishes for both matches kept it going. Like you had the crowd being like, "Oh, Moose went Moose kept the title," but then they had the crowd got their comeuppance with Macklin and Young going over the rest of the system.
I see.
And I thought it was smart to have Macklin being the one to take the heat because, with him having been a heel for so long, I think him, kind of getting his ass kicked for a while, that'll eventually build up goodwill with the fans.
I see.
That's just my weird thought process.
Well, you might not
Like
be far off.
like kind of like
Uh,
him getting his comeuppance for being such a bad guy. It's like, okay, now once he reaches a certain point of that, is okay, now he's kind of paid his dues or paid his penance.
are they doing a good job of telling that story outside the ropes?
I don't think so. No, that's kind of where that's where you need kind of need that creative.
Oh, that creative. The cardboard cutout creative. By the way, they're next.
Well, maybe not quite that kind of stuff. Like better than that. Like maybe a little step above.
Well, that is the thing. Sure, they definitely want better than that, but that's what they're getting. Ash and Heather by Elegance are Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. So you could just tell, like, in a match for the tag team championships, you could just tell they're taking it very, very seriously. But yeah, their matches with Spitfire. These four women, through probably no fault of their own, other than just saying, no, I'm not doing that, to that debacle on the Impact episode, these four ladies earned themselves a no watch for me. So what did you think of the match?
Yeah. I mean, it was all right for what it was.
I mean, we're did the moves look any better when they did it to real people this time, or?
Oh yeah, there's that nasty spill that Heather took. It looked like they went right to the finish after that. She took a DVD out to the outside and it looked like her head caught the apron on the way down.
Man.
So yeah, if that gives you any idea of how the match went.
I don't remember if I saw that part. But yeah.
We got Colin in the house, pal.
The original
The
C.
OGC, pal.
Well, Heather Reckless is rotten, so these things will happen. This one might not have been her fault. I don't remember, but it's part of being a bad wrestler is like you're not enforcing the agency to stand up for yourself.
Which I can say I made that mistake multiple times and had to learn the hard way.
Right. So it's if you part of being a professional, part of being a like a good performer is being able to say that doesn't work for me, brother, but not in the way that we normally use it. You have to look out for yourself in terms of like, hey, this is something that I don't feel comfortable doing, or basically I'm not skilled enough to do. And you a lot of people worry that they get a reputation for being difficult to work with because they will turn down something or whatever, which is that's one thing. But this chick could have died or whatever, and then she also had to agree to do this whole thing with the cardboard cutouts and whatever. And she may not feel like she's in a position, being new to the company and low on the totem pole, to be turning down creative or whatever. So she's probably just going to think, I'm going to go out and make the best of this. But there are hills and stuff that you have to die on. If you have to go out there and embarrass yourself and potentially damage your career, okay, do your best. If you feel like you're not, in a position to speak up. If it comes to taking a move from somebody, I don't give a fuck who it is. You say, I'm not taking that if you're not comfortable taking it. Now, she may have been comfortable taking it, and she's just, it's just unfortunate. It's just an accident that happens. But I don't look at any of the 4 women in this match as anybody that I would trust with my body. Like, in terms, like that they're such professionals that I have nothing to worry about. Like, all 4 of these women have a lot of room to improve. So, and we've already seen, they were involved with, wasn't it them who was involved with Alicia Edwards getting knocked the fuck out?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was that 6-person with them and Jordan.
Yeah. So I forget which one knocked Alicia out, but it was one of these wannabe bodybuilder chicks.
Yes, I remember it wasn't Jordan because she was about to dive and she saw that Alicia was knocked out. She's like, "Oh, fuck that."
Yeah. So now they already have this hanging over their heads, and potentially Heather Reckless, living up to her name, I guess, could have potentially been seriously hurt. So, Spitfire is not, as the kids say, it, in my opinion. But whatever, they win with the pressure drop. Frankie Kazarian does a promo, TNA style, which you all know what that means. Then we get a package, and then it's time for Tessa Blanchard versus Jordynne Grace. The big anticipated return of Tessa Blanchard. I'm sure a lot of the eyeballs on this pay-per-view were specially trained on this match. What's the big return of Tessa Blanchard going to be? So, before I say anything about it, I'll turn it over to you first. The big return of Tessa Blanchard. Your thoughts?
I liked the match. I thought it was a decent match because the story going into it was, based off the real heat of Tessa leaving back in 2020, Jordan cultivating the Knockouts division. Now Tessa's returning; she wants to take it back for herself, and they're trying to build like a legit blood feud. So the way this match goes, I could see both women trying to legitimately hurt each other and try to get rid of each other. And that's what it felt like they were trying to get across, even if it meant hurting themselves in the process.
Now, I know what you mean when you say legitimately hurt each other. What you mean is
they're
making it look good because, yes. However, you may not have been far off on a couple of things. I definitely, if anybody would have seen me watching this match, you would have seen me visibly wince when Tessa did that double stomp on Jordan's collarbone.
Oh yeah, that was rough.
Sitting on the apron, I was just like,
"Ooh, that looked rough." Like how do you protect yourself on that?
I don't know if you do, but maybe Tessa just is that good, and it looked that good, and I got worked. Let's hope, because it looked like that thing should have snapped. But yeah, they went on and did a whole match after that. I'm going to agree with you about everything you said. As far as like the match and the intensity that they had, they put a match together that looked like 2 women that have a problem with each other, and turning that into a, what's the word? Just a very vicious back and forth. And I also think that it's good to have a back and forth and not to have like a traditional heat and then a comeback. It should be a lot of like both these women just upping it, trying to kill each other.
This is kind of like what a 50-50 match should look like.
Yeah. The 50-50 match needs the story. You don't just have one, right?
Right. Like this had the story behind it.
So I'm agree with that. I will agree that everybody, like, I would agree that they worked hard. Like the overall psychology was there. Um, Most of the problem I had with the match, which like I said, overall was good, like you said. Um, the criticisms I would have is, uh, well, for one thing, in the middle of all that stuff, the only thing I would push back on talking about like the blood feud part of it was it also looked like Tessa was trying to show off the lucha stuff she's been learning in Mexico. And I don't think it could avoid feeling shoehorned in. Like a lot of these like fancy, you know, acrobatic things or whatever that is just lucha stuff that really doesn't fit in a fight. Like you could do that later matches that you have, but this maybe not. Um so was that. I also didn't understand
I think
why.
I think that's one thing though. With that, the announcers could sell it as is that's kind of trying to throw it in Jordan's face of I can do that, you can't.
Right. Well, we can debate on the merits of that, but I'm just saying from my perspective, I'm thinking leave that stuff out or at least some of it because it's not all like, not everything they do in Mexico is phony and unnecessary. They have a lot of cool moves and submissions and stuff that they do in Mexico. But, all the flipping and head scissoring stuff is like I just wouldn't have done it here because it would have been it just shouldn't occur to you. But the that's up for debate. But I didn't understand why every time Jordan kicked out of anything, Tessa Blanchard had this look on her face like she was pushing out a baby. Like I don't know what this pained expression was. Like she's just screaming, like crying. Like I was like, just breathe, Tessa, breathe.
I think she knows because NXT WWE is watching. She's trying to get those facials down for every time when there's a kick out.
It was a lot. It was some, I maybe that's not, the lucha isn't the only thing she learned. She probably watched a lot of telenovelas of women crying in Mexico, so they, just doing that too. Also, the the saying that you hear sometimes in wrestling when they talk about a certain wrestler, like they'll say like no wasted motion, right? You hear people use that as like some sort of a descriptor for these athletes or whatever. But I would argue that this match would be the poster, the shining example of all wasted motion, because there were a lot of things in this that had unnecessary steps to get to. In terms of like footwork and positioning, like when they're going into a spot and they want to do something in the corner, but they're doing like these short, weird reversals and turnarounds, and I'll grab you in a headlock and I'll push you back, or these other things that you just didn't need to do.
Yeah, it's like we can go from A to F, but it's like no, we want to go to A, B, C. It's like no. We can do the little Mario pipe jump. We don't need to go through this.
Yes. So that's all my notes for the match. We are getting word that Ohio State beat Notre Dame. So that's happening live as we record this. And speaking of wins, Tessa Blanchard wins with a top rope flying something. And this was after she had another 2-on-1 handicap match with the turnbuckle pads in the corner, trying to pull them off. But that's okay because these things shouldn't just come off easily. So I like the fact that it was like a struggle or whatever. That wasn't the only time somebody was going to struggle to pull something off here, and a woman at that.
And they worked it on the fly too.
Yeah. So yeah, overall, out with the old, in with the old. I guess basically is the story we're telling here.
Yeah, I could see Jordan moving up to NXT and then Tessa moving on to face Masha.
Um. All right. So, any other Tessa Blanchard related? Lara says Hogan needs to be in her corner with this WWE partnership. He's got a TNA history.
Oh shit, I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they're always looking for like TNA's always looking for like these weird D and F tier sponsors. Like I think a Real American Beer would be a step up from whatever straight to streaming, movie that they've got promoting them. So yeah, or bring back Colby Covington. Get our man, John Hartnett back in TNA. All right. So next is another catch-up package, and then it's an I Quit match. Josh versus Mike. I Quit match. What'd you think?
I liked it. It got Santana over, and especially the post match promo. Then of course I said afterwards about quitting TNA, which I think is a real life thing they're turning into an angle they're trying to get something out of.
I mean, that's more than I could say for some of the stuff. Anything else?
I think it did a good character development for Mike Santana, where it's kind of like he's trying to move on from his past, but if you push him, he ain't afraid to go back to it.
Okay.
And he'll do it for the right reasons.
Okay. Well, about the match, I mean, again with the ankle lock, they didn't do it a lot, but they did do a spot of like, I've already explained it a bunch of times. I'm not going to go through it again, but at least they didn't just keep going back to it. It wasn't Kurt versus Shawn at WrestleMania type bad, but it was, they did do it. There was also a spot where Josh Alexander was hitting, like he even pulled his elbow pad off, but he was hitting elbows on Santana, and it was like I was watching him do it, and he's working the elbow, but he's like throwing it in a weird way where it's like he's trying to make it look like he's trying to bust him open the hard way. But he's not. He's missing, but he's making it look like he's trying to hardway him with his elbows. And it was awkward. And then like I could see Santana going into his wrist tape to get the fucking blade out. And the camera wasn't focused on him, but I could see him. Like I could see his weird body language and positioning while Josh Alexander is like, letting him do it. And he's like, so like he gets to the spot and he goes to like, I'm seeing this, like the camera's not, they're not zooming in on it, but they're not missing it. So I'm watching him try to get color, and he comes up with like almost nothing. Like I've brushed my teeth too hard and got more blood than that. So that was a waste. And I just don't understand, like, if you wanted a hard way the guy, just hard way him. But I bet Josh doesn't know how to do it. So it was just a weird little sequence in the middle of the match. I don't know if anybody else picked up on that. But I saw it and it was awkward. Did you notice that? That whole thing I just said?
I think I might have missed that part of it. I don't know. It might have been part during a interactive chat or during a Don Stevens interruption.
It could have been. But yeah, it was definitely a worked hard way attempt. It's so weird. Because if you're going to cut yourself, then you could do anything before that. You don't have to you you don't have to throw the fake hard way attempts to if you're cutting yourself anyway. I just don't understand what the purpose of it is. If he's cutting himself, you can make the elbows look however you want. And it didn't end up coming up with anything, so that's another. And you know what? You know, now that I'm saying it, that's another time where like Santana's just he's out here and he's kind of like he's doing these promos and he's talking about being the guy and like, you know, they're even in this match, Josh Alexander's like yelling at him, "You'll never be the guy." You know, like that kind of thing. They're telling this story with the character of, you know, Mike Santana wants to be the guy. He wants to get to that next level. He wants to be, you know, a face of a company or something like that, right? Not just a tag team.
I just thought of something. What if TNA is trying to build Joe Hendry and Mike Santana as like the Rock and Stone Cold?
Oh God, please. But if maybe they are, not. Yeah, I didn't mean to please your idea, but like the idea of them having that idea, right? Like,
no, I'm with you on that. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking too.
But but that's a story. Yeah, that if anything, you're having like the blue collar, you know, Mike Santana come from the streets, be the Stone Cold, and you have Joe Hendry, the weird entertainer guy, you know, somewhat privileged, be the Rock, right? That makes sense. But what I'm seeing does not like add up. Like I don't see him walking the walk because he like for this instance, like if this was just one instance, and I'll still leave it up to coincidence so far, but if I see a third strike, I'm going to say that Santana's all talk because he gets this weak blade job here, right? Like it's not even worth it. The blood, he didn't even bleed. There was just some blood on his head, but I still saw him go through the motions of getting the blade and everything. So he's not cutting himself. He's not going all in with this, right? Even in a match where it would have looked good for him to like have a crimson mask, right? Good image. He got a driveway scrape, like you fell in the driveway and scraped your knee. Like he didn't even get that. And then if you think back to the match that he had with Moose, you remember how he kayfabed Moose on some of those moves he was doing? Like when Moose went for the, you know, the go to hell or whatever, or the whatever he calls that the sky high off the top rope. And like Santana like turned his body in a weird way, like he didn't want to take the move. And then he did like a couple other things where he like kayfabed Moose on some moves and could have potentially hurt himself or Moose. Like there was a couple of those times where like Santana's kind of acting like a bitch in these matches. No color, won't take moves. Like if this happens one more time, he's made my list. And he's going to get right in there and he's going to get buried just like Eric Young and all these other guys.
And like Brian Myers over the ladder?
Yep, Brian Myers over the ladder. You do this one more motherfucking time, Santana, and it's open season. So anyways, oh yeah, also, now I don't know whose call this was, so I'm not going to make this the third strike, but he just took the C4 and popped up. So we're doing that. He no-sold the C4.
Yeah, my first thought was, okay, that had to have been a call from somebody from above, like, okay, Josh Alexander's on his way out. We're going to have, you know, our next guy taking his place. No sells finish.
Right. But now, keeping in mind with that psychology, not saying you're wrong, but let's say you're right. Let's say that's somebody's mentality, like, well, you're on the way out, so we're going to bury your finish. Well, where are you on the way out to, motherfucker? You're potentially, you could go to NXT. And if you have a working relationship then it doesn't do good to do damage to the goods on the way out because the goods are getting delivered to somewhere that you're getting a meal ticket from. So doing jobs and making people look stupid is not how you hand off a product to WWE who's going to give them more exposure than you. If anything, you should be putting people over on the way out. Like Josh Alexander could potentially win, you know? But he can't win here because the reason that we're about to get to and that you already said. But like I'm just saying, like in terms of like a Jordan Grace or something. You know what I mean? Like if Jordan Grace is earmarked for bigger things in WWE, maybe she goes over Tessa Blanchard. Like this is not like a everybody's on their own. Fuck you. You're leaving the company, so I don't care what happens to you after this. Now this is a partnership we're talking about. So we're sharing the talent. They may sign a piece of paper that has this letterhead on it, but we're working with them. So it's like if you get it'd be like Valentine's Day's coming up, everybody. Maybe you got a special sweetheart that you want to give a nice Russell Stover's box of chocolates from the gas station to. Just be sure when you give her that nice heart-shaped box of chocolates that you don't eat like 6 or 7 of them before you fucking give it to her, you idiots.
Yeah. And don't leave her the coconut either.
Right. Dumbasses. TNA are so fucked. Anyway, yeah, so he zip ties Josh Alexander and whips him with a belt. And it takes the threat of a curb stomp on the steel stairs to get him to finally quit. And then he makes him shake his hand. And he does. He says, I quit this match and I quit TNA. So, what do they call that? Cliffhanger? Cliffhanger. It's going to happen on Thursday.
Yep, they actually did say that Santana will address what happened on this the live Impact on Thursday, which we'll be doing a watch along of.
Hey. All right. Another package then. It's Hardys versus Rascals. And surprise, surprise, the NXT Tag Team Champions Frazium are here. Now, I know they kept calling them Fraxium, but just so everybody knows that's not familiar with the Next Level Wrestling review, I named them Frazium long before anybody else did. Because I felt like Fraxium is just Axiom with a FR in front. And that's not fair that Axiom gets his whole name in the team name and Fraser doesn't. So I said Frazium is a good compromise. And that's why I went with that. And that's why I'm a genius and nobody else is in wrestling. So
I can't argue with that logic.
No, nobody can. I dare you. So anyway, yeah, they're watching from the ramp and then they get dove on accidentally or on purpose. And then they get upset about that and then they get ejected. My thought on that is, I mean, Frazium are kind of baby faces. So I would think that if you sit in the splash zone at SeaWorld, that you shouldn't get mad if you get wet, you know? So if you're going to sit in the ramp during like a match of teams that's known for high flying, I would think that they wouldn't just immediately like, they could see that it was an accident and they wouldn't need to get aggressive, but because this is pro wrestling and there's no creativity whatsoever, they just have to like do the thing where they get mad and security escorts them out.
You could have done something fun at the beginning, like, I will sit ringside. Wait a minute. We know you guys' reputation. We're fine up here on the stage watching from there.
Yep.
And then you have a thing where they're brawled to the stage, and that's when it happens.
Or you just have a thing where they get hit and they don't get mad because they're like, oh, damn, that was crazy. You know, I don't know. Just something in character. Whatever. Who cares? Hardys win the match. So, sorry, Rascals. It's not your time. It's time for these broken down 50-year-olds. Yeah.
Because Well, hey, as we find out, or do we want to mention that now? That was announced for the live Impact.
Go ahead and mention it.
Yeah, so it will be the NXT Tag Team titles, Frasium versus the Rascals.
Oh yeah. Oh, I was about to. You're right. Okay. So, well, first we do another nice Chris Bay package. So if anybody wants to donate and everything, then they show Dolphin Joe preparing, warming up, and then yes, they already have a graphic for Frasium versus Rascals on Thursday. This actually, just minutes later, they're like, "Yep, this match is made." So that's how quickly things happen at TNA. And that was, quick phone calls to Shawn Michaels, everything. Their graphics department is really on top of everything. They can just throw together. They can barely get their audio issues synced, but they can definitely make a graphic in 5 minutes. It's good. Rosemary versus Masha, Clockwork Orange House of Fun match. I want to point out that when I put Clockwork on my phone, the predictive text will finish this now. So, like, I put Clockwork. The next suggestion is Orange. The next suggestion is House. The next suggestion is Of. Next suggestion is Fun. That's how long I've been doing TNA. Yeah. So, I don't know. What do you want to talk about in this?
So we had the segment on Impact where Raven said he would be there watching. Then, from that time that aired, that announcement happens of the partnership, and all of a sudden he's not there. So I wonder, that has something to do with that?
Interesting theory. Could it also have been that Raven just meant he would be there at the building in the back, not anywhere anybody could see? Or did he mean there as in like his own house, watching on TV? Which I'm also sure he couldn't have been bothered to do. I don't know. All right. I don't really look. You guys all know, or you should, or maybe if you're new, you don't. I don't like garbage matches. I don't enjoy them. Um, I only look at this as two talented women like this, just more opportunities for things to go wrong. And in my opinion, something almost did and looked like it did when Masha took that ladder bump, and it was supposed to fall outside the ring through two tables, but she only went through the first table, and she fucking hit the ground. There was no give, or it was all give on the table. Like, there was no resistance from that table. She shot through that table and immediately hit the ground so hard, I thought she might have died.
Yeah, that was rough. We thought for a second that like she caught the back of her head on that second table that she missed on her way down, but it looked like her arm kind of braced that and protected her head from hitting it. But that didn't protect her head from hitting the ground.
No. I mean, she seemed okay. All things considered, when she finished the match and everything, and I don't know if she had, but I mean, it's the kind of thing that even if you took it, she hit that. I'm telling you guys, if you didn't see this, go look at it or don't. But I'm just saying, like, with that velocity, she could have hit the ground full shoulder. Her head could have came nowhere near the ground, and she still could have got a concussion just because of the force and the speed that she hit the ground with. Like, that would have rocked her whole body. Like, there's no way. So, if she got a mild concussion or even a major concussion, I wouldn't have been surprised. But that wasn't the end of the match, so we just keep going, and eventually they have a nice, they do that thing where they set up a row of chairs, facing each other in the ring, and Masha's able to hit the Requiem off the second rope or whatever through that row of chairs and beat Rosemary. So there you go. That's the match. And then we get another one of Ariana Grace's best friends here as Cora Jade comes out with music and makes her way down to the ring. And when she gets in the ring and faces off with Masha Slamovich uses one of the deadliest moves in pro wrestling, the belt hold. No one can escape the belt hold. It's a deadly transfixing maneuver. Once you hold that belt in somebody's face, they are unable to act. They are paralyzed, possibly with fear or perhaps boredom. Whichever the case, we got to transition out of this belt hold because there's no good way to do it on TV. You always have to like fade out when someone does the belt hold, because the only other option is if you keep the camera on them, you'll just have to have the wrestler put the belt back down and the other wrestler just walk away because there's no physicality. So the belt hold. Are you a fan of the belt hold?
It's all right. It's one of my favorite counter to that is, got something going on in the back. Let's go to the let's cut to the back.
We did not have something going on in the back here. What we did have was probably some ads, I think, and then the panel from earlier just come out to the stage without the table because they probably had to borrow the panel's table for Masha Slamovich to miss on the ladder spot. But they come back out and make their predictions for the main event. Santino's out there. And then my brother comes out and he starts talking and nobody wants to hear that. And then Santino bans him from ringside and security escorts him out. So we won't be seeing him, or will we? And then we go to another video package and looks like there's been enough talk. It's time for the main event. Shout out to Mark Henry who was there.
They should have had him ring announce that.
I know. Dolph Ziggler versus Joe Hendry. I mean, this is exactly it's Dolph Ziggler versus Joe Hendry. I mean, what do you want? Like, in typical fashion, you know, Dolph Ziggler spends all his time telling us how damn good he is at wrestling, and then you watch the match and it's like, I guess, is Joe Hendry even good in the ring? Yeah, he's about as good as The Rock was when he was on his meteoric rise. When Dolph Ziggler is in the match and it's only been like 4 or 5 minutes and he's like already doing the spot where he's like trying to put a sleeper, and the crowd's like, he's trying to, or not the crowd, Tom's like, he's trying to put Joe Hendry to sleep. And I was like, no, he's trying to put us to sleep.
Yeah, like, where do we go from here? The shit, we got 10 more minutes to fill. I know, fuck.
Yes, I'm lost. I'm grabbing a sleeper. Like, he's just the most, he's got to be the most overrated wrestler of all time. Not in the terms of like his mechanics, you know, because unlike, say, Spitfire, I could trust Dolph Ziggler to do anything in the ring. I would never, if I was in the ring with Dolph Ziggler, I would never worry about calling anything for him because I know he could do it. And that would not be a concern of mine. I know he would do it safely and he would do it well. But it's just the psychology, and it's just not knowing how to have the kind of match that's needed for certain situations or whatever. It's just boring. And he's supposed to make Joe Hendry, and I guess, you know, 6 out of 10, but even so, we're going to have some shenanigans. Like, for example, my brother has bought a ticket. So I guess it wasn't sold out. And
I actually went and looked it up before we went on the air. The only tickets left were like 12 of like the floor seats.
Oh, really? Um. Well, anyway, yeah. And Ray Walt was trying to put it over, like, oh, I'm sure they held a ticket back for him. You know, doesn't matter. It's just a small thing. But yeah, they're doing that. He's like, I'm gonna come out here. I'm banned from ringside, but as we all know, the people on this side of the barricade are way more dangerous because Eddie Edwards can't knock us out, and we can push Casey Navarro down. So he's definitely on the right side of that. Um, but then Frankie Kazarian at one point comes in, and he's going to cash in his trophy in the bank um, to become the champion. But here comes JBL, like right on the spot. He must have been standing like right there in the crowd where Ryan was sitting, because he just comes right in, clothesline to Frankie Kazarian, which prompts Ryan to hop the rail. He gets punched, knocked out. A fantastic bump by him, by the way. I like that. I'm not gonna. I might bury Ryan Ziegler and everything else, but that was funny the way he took that punch. And then they go back to the match, and the polite, gentlemanly exchange of finisher kickouts between the men. It's like, I respect you, brother. Let's kick out of each other's finishes. No hard feelings. And Joe Hendry, it doesn't matter if you believe or not. Joe Hendry is your new TNA champion after a second standing ovation. This match was and it was still overbooked. So even if you wanted to say, like, if Dolph was trying to make Joe Hendry, the booking undid it. Just, So there you go. But Joe Hendry's the guy for now. And that's our new beginning. What'd you think overall of the match and the show?
The match itself, I thought it was nothing special, but it served its purpose to try to get, Joe Hendry over and establish him as, all right, he's the new face of the company. As far as the show went, I thought it was actually structured and built pretty well. Like, every match felt unique. The fact that we had 3 women's matches on the show, even those felt unique. We had the women's tag, we had the women's, grudge match, and then we had the women's, hardcore death match, which happened to be the only, hardcore death match on the show.
Unless you count the I Quit match, which basically is.
True, but I think they did enough to separate the two, other than their positioning on the card.
Yeah, I'll give you that. All right, well, that was TNA Genesis. It's a new year, and we'll see what we do. The direction that we go now that we have this partnership with WWE. We'll see if there's any influence from the outside, or even just attempts to suck up, whichever. But I think we've given you more than enough for tonight. So we've done our job, hopefully. Let's see if TNA will do theirs. And in the meantime, I guess we should tell you where you can find more of us when we're not talking about TNA. Brandon?
As always, you can catch me on Twitter, or as the kids call it these days, the X, at LG Brandon Whoop. I am also on twitch.tv/LG Brandon Whoop Whoop. It's kind of flexible as far as when I'm on that, but guaranteed is always Wednesday nights after the HMG AEW Dynamite watch along, which happens every Wednesday night. And then what we got tomorrow night? We're going to be doing a replay watch along of NXT after it's already aired. So hope to catch you guys there. Let's see what we got. Yeah, of course, we explained Wednesday. Thursday night, we're going to be doing a watching along of the live TNA Impact. First time in, what was it, 8 years now?
The live one?
Yep.
I thought that was February 20th. Is there another live one?
No, it's it's this Thursday.
All right.
Yep. And then we got, let's see what we got on Friday, the SmackDown watch along. And then Saturday night's main event. Then Sunday, HMG After Dark.
All right, and that will bring us right back to the Raw watch along and the Next Level Wrestling review next week. Subscribe to Hami Media Group on channelattitude.com. Thank you very much,
Yes,
Matt
sir.
Schaffer, for the promotion. This will be up on Channel Attitude tomorrow.
Big things happening here, pal.
That's right. It's all about the money. And we're not paying any NDAs because everything's above board here. So you can find me at Opinion Haver on all your favorite social media platforms or other platforms in general. If you Google me, you won't be impressed, just like Cameron Wright. But you can definitely check me out on Channel Attitude shows such as the Next Level Wrestling Review, which is live every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern with Big Ray Hernandez. We talk about NXT, and we're going to cover the other half of this partnership. That's another thing we didn't really like overall. If I was to grade NXT's involvement in this show, D-. Like they didn't send anybody of any real significance. So it's just, I mean, Frasium maybe, but for what they end up doing, no. But anyway, yes, check out more NXT stuff every Wednesday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern live. Check out The Wreckage every Sunday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern with Jimmy T and myself. We talk about an entire week of AEW in and around 2 hours. So it's, we're doing our best to be the AEW co-speed champions. But, sometimes even we have to do the favors. If you want to check out some...
Not like the good hands.
No, not like the good hands. We're also not going to run down your local sports team or whatever. So if you want to check out some related content, as everybody should know, I'm a Rip Rogers guy, but Rip Rogers himself does a live Q&A every week, every Friday at their concrete time of noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. At least that's the concrete time, unless someone puts their hands in the concrete while it's drying and messes things up. So you just simply subscribe and click the bell to get notified when they go live. And you can ask Rip Rogers a question, and he just might answer it. He may not answer with the answer that you want, but he'll give you the answer that you get. Then, also on Fridays, you're going to want to watch a new episode of The Stevie Richards Show. Stevie Richards, new content every Friday, unique content in the wrestling space, and him giving his thoughts on things like Penta's WWE debut, which brought him a great deal of controversy, as it did anybody who didn't like it. So, but yes, check him out. And his most latest episode was about another video game episode, talking more about video games. So a little break from the wrestling, even though there's still plenty of wrestling talk. So check out Stevie Richards Show. Check out Wrestling with Rip Rogers. Check out everything. We'll check you out. We'll check you out of here. So thank you for joining us. And for Brandon, I'm the vet, and I don't have a sign-off line.
Oh, and also, too, I forgot to mention, 10 to 15 minutes, about, let's just say 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. Central. We'll be right back here picking up with the Raw Watch Along.
I always forget that part. Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah, it's a new thing. We're getting used to it, pal.